Hi, everyone. This is David Horton. I'm the Director of Learning Networks with the Core Collaborative, and happy to be with you and share this Lunch and Learn series. This will actually be 4 parts. This is an introductory part to 3 easy steps to team transformation in the subject area of innovative change. There will be 3 more parts that follow. I'm very excited to have you with me as we get started on this introduction. The purpose of this is something that can be used um, with teams of teachers, even done in a remote fashion where you may have to be doing things by video webinar or other such ways because people can't be in the same room but still have to be connected to each other. And we'll talk about why that's so important, especially in this time with so much change happening so rapidly, and the speed of that change. So let's get started. So thinking about teams and things such as innovative change. When Henry Ford shared this quote with us some time ago, I think it perhaps may be even more relevant today than it was when he first shared it. That idea of how do we keep together? How do we work together? And if we think about in the times that we're in right now, those are 2 very relevant questions. Now more than ever, we have to be in a situation of supporting one another and not going it alone. And why and how do we do that? And shrink that transactional distance between us to make it so that working together is possible and that it's productive and successful. So think about that for a little bit. And how do we do that? So whatever your role is, whether your role is a team member, as a teacher leader, an administrator, or whatever that might be, this is a really important thing for us to consider. So let me get you started thinking about something with this question. Where does sustained improvement come from? And when you think about your experience as an educator, you can probably think that, if I were to ask you, how does a school or a district improve? And how does that become sustained improvement over time? You might think about it and consider, well, it might be because there was a top-down mandate. It might be because one teacher became amazing and excellent, and those things could create improvement. But does it create sustained improvement? That's the interesting question. So go a little deeper with that. And in your common sense experience, why is it that you know that one beyond excellent teacher, although their classroom is fantastic, why would you know that that doesn't improve a whole school? Or if you go from that other extreme of a top-down mandate or initiative, why doesn't that have much bite when it comes to improving school performance or district performance for that matter? And if you consider that, what are those challenges that exist from a top-down perspective? If you're watching this video blog with colleagues, this would be an excellent time to stop the recording and ask that question of each other and just get some ideas out on the table. Some of the answers that you may have come up with are interesting and probably follow along these lines. That the reason we know that top-down initiatives typically have little bite when it comes to improving districts or schools, that isn't to say that leadership isn't important. It is. Dictating what always travels down, meaning what we're focusing on. And that is the role of leadership. But how the work gets done comes entirely from those who receive that message, doesn't it? So when we think of the direction that we're going to travel, where we're going, that comes from the leader. But how we get there has to come from those that are doing the work. So how do we create that balance? So if a top-down initiative has little bite, and if one single teacher becoming excellent is not going to improve a school, though their classroom is fantastic, it doesn't change all of fourth grade or Algebra 1, does it? How do we find something that's in between those two extremes? And we land on teams. Teams of teachers are the increment of work that lands between the top-down initiative and the one super excellent teacher. So let's think about teams, and in this time and setting that we're living through now, why teams, I would argue, are now more than ever crucial to our success and to our well-being and to the success of our students. Let's think about some of those things and how we can create that impact. So think about teams. What makes teams run effectively? How do we know that teams have the fuel to do what teams need to do? How do we get that, and how do we sustain that? So again, if you have colleagues with you, this would be another excellent time to stop and ask this reflective question of each other. And you can go around and poll one another 20, 30 seconds each, what makes teams run effectively. You probably came up with some of these answers when you think about what makes teams run effectively. And that forms the basis of not just this particular video blog, but a blog and resources that I'll be making available to you that you can use with teammates to create this kind of momentum. But that's what forms the basis of this entire thing. One of the key ideas behind this is based on the work of Alan Daly. Alan, a researcher, professor at UC San Diego, noted in his work that social networks of people have tremendous impact on what we do and on student learning. In fact, he noticed that the stronger the social network and bond between people, whether they be in teams, in schools, in districts, whatever, meaning the way that they work together, learn together, communicate together, share together, that social network improves student learning. That there are actual metrics in his work that show that that improves student learning. So doing the work of being a good team improves student learning. We also know that by doing the work of teams well, John Hattie found in his book Visible Learning that collective teacher efficacy, meaning how we do our work and do it well together, can quadruple the speed of learning for our students. So think about that. If what Daly and Hattie share with us are important and crucial, it is completely within our scope of impact that if we do good work together and do that work well, we are improving the learning of our students. So now more than ever, how do we hold together as teams, even if there may be very different ways we have to interact with each other to be a team? So how would you build stronger teams in these times where you may be doing it through video conferencing and through remote means to be together and still do good work? Even if we're in a traditional team setting where you are able to be in the same room, the factors will remain the same. How do we build stronger teams and create this collective efficacy? If you asked and answered that question of each other, you probably landed on things that result in these three areas, meaning teams are built on these, aren't they? There's a learning network to teams, meaning the way that we talk to each other, the way that we have relational trust with each other, these sorts of things are part of the learning network, how we learn together, communicate together, have trust with one another. Those are important qualities of teams and have to be maintained and built. And that's a big piece of what this blog series is about and how we deal with so much change and support each other through that. There are structures to teams, how teams are built, how we operate, how we work together, and then finally the process of teams, how teams um, do what the work is rather that teams do, meaning what they work on becomes incredibly important. All three of those things must be present for teams to be well functioning teams. So, how do we do those things? Let me give you a couple of ideas about each of those that you might think about. And as we begin this blog series, that you could use and bring into your team meetings immediately, that you could do some of these things and maintain these three areas, even if times are very different. How do we do that? So, let's start with the learning network and talk about a couple of ideas. One of those things that is crucial in the learning network, and that's what this entire blog series is built on, is this idea of building relational trust. And it's the underpinnings of that being the communication that we have with one another and the things we're learning together. Those are crucial parts. If you think about this, let me share with you a little bit of some of Alan Daly's recent conversations and um, research that's been going on out there in this idea of the social network, but in particular in the area of trust. And one of the things that's been studied as of late is this idea of vulnerability and how we're vulnerable with one another. Here's an interesting thing. You might think that the old saying, look before you leap, would be wise advice. And if you think about how we build trust with one another, you might think that that's the way that common sense would tell you that trust is built. And actually, what Daly shares by way of some research from a researcher named Coyle is that actually they're finding that it's the exact opposite of that. Meaning, building trust in teams isn't that we look first before we jump. It's actually that we jump and then look for a place to land. So by leaping out and sharing, that's how trust is built in teams. So, how do we create a safe, vulnerable space for people to be able to share? And what should they share? And the other interesting piece that Daly and Coyle find is that it's sharing things of a professional nature allow us to create that vulnerability. Meaning, we don't have to get together in a team setting, a professional setting, and share our dark innermost secrets. That's not it. It's that we share things that are of purpose, that are about the work that we do. And I have some tools for you at the end of this blog to get you started doing exactly that. Structures of teams are important. We know that. How does our team function? What roles do we have? How we build an agenda and so forth. And I would encourage you that in these times, this becomes incredibly important to maintain structures and the semblance of order so that people see that we have an orderly purpose, that we come together and we can do good work, even if it's done remotely. And finally, the process. For those of you that are experienced with the Core Collaborative, you know exactly what I'm going to share there, is that my colleagues, Bloomberg and Pitchford, have the excellent process of impact teams with the EAA framework, evidence analysis and action. And this blog series, as we go forward, will be built on the EAA format to fit what impact teams do. Those of you that may not be doing impact teams yet, I would highly consider and urge that you look to that as something that your teams can work on as the process of what teams do. So as we bring this in as an introduction, and remember, this is only the introduction, it's important that you stop and think, well, how are we feeling right now? Do we believe in these things as teams? This would be a good time to stop and share with each other. How do we believe in this? Do we feel this? Is having a strong learning network, orderly structures, and productive processes important to us? Do we believe that our team would benefit if we created and worked on how we're doing rather than just what we're working on? So the blog, the appendices, and the diagnostics are all here. The first thing that you'll do is take these diagnostics that you can take with your teammates and save the results. On my blog website, you'll be able to find these resources. They're available to you for free. You can grab them, use them, and ask these questions of one another. The directions of how to do them are there. You can then save the results of these in the upcoming blog series. We will use those results to share content of how you can take the results and create team meeting and dialogue around those. And then finally, you can do the group read method of these thought question reflections through not just this video blog, but in those that are coming as well. So the important thing is to go to the website, find the diagnostics, take those diagnostics, do that with team members, and save your results so that we can share and work on the next phase. So hopefully this gives you enough of an introduction of what we're going to do, that as we get started, this is what we can do to support our teams. Hopefully you found this to be interesting and important for you as you think about the work that teams do. And really appreciate you taking your time to do a Lunch and Learn series with me. It's, I think, a really innovative and great idea for us to stay connected and do PD in small bursts. So here are some of our resources. Be sure you check us out, not just on our website, corecollaborative.com, but also our Facebook, YouTube pages, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Social Core for Twitter. And hopefully this has been useful and interesting to you, and look forward to having you join on the next blog series. Thanks, and we'll see you later.